Hello, everybody! It is Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this video, the training arc continues. That's right. Uh, so this is again an ongoing series of me wanting to be one of the top Cities of Sigmar players again. That hasn't really been the case since probably early into the pandemic, and then when I made all my bread doing stuff online, beating the snot out of people on Tabletop Simulator and having a great time with it. And we're bringing it back. And this is my process too for like learning a new army and how do I do these things. I get asked that all the time with like how do I learn all these things and what do you do? On the plus side, I've got good news and bad news and okay news. I know we're gonna give you the sour first and finish with the sweet. All right. Bad news. I wanted to get 2 practice games in before this video and only could get 1. You know, we're all adults here mostly. I am. I don't know about my viewers, but we'll assume we're all mature enough to be adults here. Adults are busy. Things happen. My second game fell through. That just meant I could build more of my models, and now I am 6 Fulminators and 1 Belthanos. Fulminators, jeez. Ooh. Fusiliers, not Fulminators. We're not doing... I miss my old Living City army before it got nerfed. But, again, we're close to being done being built. We're getting magnets on everything. I got a new magnet case so I could travel with my army easier. And won't get smashed up like my Deepkin did last year at Adepticon. So, life is going good. Quality of life is going good. Good news. The one game I played, I won, and I'll talk about it right now. Somewhat okay news. I'm a very firm believer in you learn more from your losses and your mistakes than you do your victories. But, you know, we don't have deeper things, and this is a small sample size, but we can talk about it. This is real. This happened, and let's go. So I played, friend of me. His name is Bobo. There's 4 bows there because there's just a lot off of like the anime. Lovely guy who played his Kabbalah Slaves to Darkness army. It was 6 Vanguard, 10 Chosen, 2 blocks of 10 Warriors. The unmade Warcry Warband, the one with the faces as belts, because they have a really cool ability to stop commands from being issued, like Inspiring Presence and Redeploy, because they're just so freaking scary. And then there was a Chaos Lord on foot, Chaos Sorcerer, and a Karkadrak. And that again, I'll put it in the card to my last video where I made the list. And here we are. I won the priority and outdropped my opponent. We were both 4 drops. And as you can see, I gave away first turn. We were playing for the Pulse. For our game, which is there are 4 objectives in the middle of the board long ways. Starting from battle round 2 onward, you pick an objective, then it moves, and the pulse itself counts as 2. Objectives next to the pulse count as 1, and you also score if you hold at least 1 objective. Now, then you also get your battle tactics. So scoring in this is not as traditional as score 1, score 2, score more battle tactic, but that means points can spike. And as you can see, I followed a few different rules of mine that are rules of thumb, where I outdropped. Because I have 2 options my first turn. Take the turn, get my buffs up, and enjoy my buffs. Or give away the turn because I'm the shooting army, and if I can double turn my opponent, I can put this to bed pretty reliably early. And as you can see, I gave away the turn. My opponent scored 1 point out of a maximum of 3 potential. And what happened was they called for magical dominance. Um, and also, I know it says sanctify is my first thing, and I am using the, as you can see, as my little recap here, the tabletop battles app that I made a video about before. They did not have at the time the city's battle tactic I actually used, so sanctify is just a placeholder. I did the battle tactic where you capture an objective as with a cavalry unit, a mounted unit that charged this turn called Mount the Charge. It wasn't listed in the app, so that was just a placeholder for me. Um, and, and my opponent went and gambled with magical dominance, and I got an unbind off. If I remember right, it was they got their primal dice up to like an 11 on the casting roll, and I rolled an 11 plus 1 with my Pontifex and shut it down. Life is good. Stuff my opponent to 1 point, and then I immediately score 3 because I was able to take an objective my opponent had with my Belthanos, who is mounted and counts for the battle tactic for cities, Mount the Charge. I also learned that all units have to be mounted on the objective, and I almost had a unit of my Wilder Corpse hunters on there as well, and almost screwed myself. So that's a good learning curve here. And Belthanos went in and charged a unit of Chaos Warriors. I shot them as best I could. I did not get my Mortal Wound spell off. It got unbound. And it was very close between Fusilier shooting, Wild Corp Hunter shooting, and Belthanos kind of whiffing. I only killed 8 of 10 Chaos Warriors. But Belthanos is a monster and counts as 5. So I got the objective and got my battle tactic. It was clenched. I clenched it a little bit. It was bad, but it ended up being okay. All right, that's good. Next, I ended up double turning, and I intimidated the invaders for an easy battle tactic because most of my army was already out of my territory, which is great. And where my opponent put the pulse was right where I needed it to not be, because he put it near his chosen that were screened out by a unit of Furies. That was the last unit I forgot was in his army. And I, with my Whisper Blade in my command core, tried to stop the Furies redeploying. Spoiler alert, I have not rolled a Whisper Blade 4-up to stop a command from going off yet. That's too much skill involved for me, everybody. I can't figure that out to save my life, how to roll a 4-up. But the Belthanos combo of turning a piece of terrain into mystical for the Pontifex to do their prayer on a 2-up is amazing. And in this turn, I was able to, the end of the first turn, going into second, I was using the Pontifex as kind of a forward screen, along with Steel Helms and the Wilder Corpse Hunters, so that she would be out of my territory, so I can get the 2 effects off of the prayer roll instead of 1, and I popped a bunch of good mortal wounds off on heroes. Belthanos went in and tried to pin the Varangard. My opponent was being very cagey and had them honestly in the back of their territory to be like a second wave to come in. And I'm like, oh, cool, if I can go and pin them in, maybe get them to burn their fight twice, charge in a way that they can't just pull out of combat with Belthanos. They were all armed with lances, so I'm negating the charge bonus. I'm doing all these cool things. They burnt their fight twice and killed Belthanos. My wards were rough. My armor saves were okay. I killed I think I did 9 wounds. With Belthanos, I whiffed a bit again. So I killed 1 and then left 1 on a wound. And then when he died, my goal of pinning him in place didn't work. My Dark Elves contingent of because for me they're Phoenix Guard. I'm playing them as Blackguard, but I own Phoenix Guard. They kill the Furies, which was great. In my again, I scored a bunch of points. In my opponent's turn, my God, things got crazy. Where we ended up fighting Chosen. Eventually, I left. God, I killed 3, and then I got priority into round 3. And if I didn't, it was looking a little rough. But again, that's why my opponent did the pulse for 2, an objective next to it for. No, they didn't control an objective next to it, and they just controlled an objective, which is where that is, where they scored their 3. If I had not taken priority in round 3, this game would have been a little bit more closer because my Blackguard got thrashed by Chosen fighting twice. Turns out good rules are good. And they were Slanesh Chosen, so on the charge, they hit really good. And also, I'd like to note that the Chaos Warriors were Nurgle for the -1 to be wounded debuff. That wouldn't have mattered with Belthanos because my opponent, again, made great armor saves and did what he had to do. But going into round 3, my Fusiliers realized they have cannons on the end of their sticks, and they got that good mortal wound shooting off. And then the Chosen just evaporated. And my opponent after that, because again, I got my banners held high. Yeah, with the Command Corps. The thing that having played against cities, what I've done good against it and playing alongside it, is I have to watch out for my castle moving too slowly. I need to push out my screens and take the center of the board is something that I learned through this game. Where then I can have the Command Corps up on an objective to go and score that battle tactic. I can use the longer range from my artifact to still affect the whole board if I'm in the middle. This is something that I did with in 2nd edition when I would bring 9 long strikes in a Stormcast list. I'd have them in 2 ballistas back in the day, and I'd deep strike them into the middle of the board, seemingly stupidly. But, you used to be able to have Aether Wings basically like countercharge in the opponent's charge phase. So I would set up a nearly impenetrable castle that would be dead in a minute to magic. But I would shoot everything dead as quickly as possible before they all blew up in a convocation of fiery magic-y doom. So I'm like, let's see how this kind of tactic works here. And my opponent conceded. It works. The list works. Alright? Though a thought lingered through this game, and as I was talking about it with my wife who also plays, and I'm like, I could make it better. Because one thing I noticed in this game is once the Blackguard die and Belthanos dies, it's all in the Fusiliers and me delaying as long as possible to get them as many turns of shooting as possible. And by the way, the spell Tenumbral Blades on Blackguard is amazing. I love it so much. It does so much work for me. It's fantastic. Because here's the other thing too. When the Chosen came into me, they used their fight twice ability at the end of the combat phase. So they killed 10 Blackguard. Because I rolled okay with my wards. They got a lot of good damage through. And then 10 Blackguard ended up lifting like 4 or 5 Chosen. And at the end of the day, the unit fled because they had one model left, and he went away to battle shock. And it got me thinking too. If I am not careful with my own command points, um, how do I get my combo off of the shooting phase +1 to hit and wound buff onto my Fusiliers? And again, a thought creeped into me. If I change Belthanos for the Marshal on Griffin with a lance, which I own, my model is actually the old Island of Blood. I'm looking at it right now off camera. The Island of Blood Griffin, because again, all my stuff was high elf city themed to be like a city that was a mix between Living City and the Phoenicium, because I was big into the Wanderers. So I've got the Griffin and Marshal on foot. That fits in the same points. So I have another mobile hammer, which is great. And then the Free Guild Marshal on foot has an ability to basically give a unit in range of his ability a free command point to be spent on a command whenever that needs to be issued. And it could be any hero or the unit itself issuing the command, but it just is for free. So that's the Relic Envoy ability. So my thought was, this list worked great, but if I could always guarantee a free command point to do my combo, and then I could like reroll a charge. I don't have to worry about if I get the triumph or not. I could do other things. I could all out defense. I could save a command point for battle shock, because my bravery sucks in this army. You know, what do you do here? And you know, my wife hit me with my own advice, saying, "Rocco, you haven't played enough games with this army yet before you start making changes. You don't know if this win was a fluke. You don't know if you actually need to change it, because it's built around the Belthanos combo to empower the Pontifex to go, and it's a big cascading thing. And if I am already thinking about changing pieces up out of this, you know, I don't know if I'm overthinking it or not." Right? Because obviously the list worked. We're one for one here in wins. But that is too small a sample size, as I've said on other videos. And I need to respect that and figure out what's next for me. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not on a green screen, I know my shirt's a little dark. It's a dark green and it doesn't show. I'd be a floating head and a Snoopy. So no green screen this video. But again, thinking about all of this with the training arc, we have the list, we have the idea. Eventually, there will be a winter points update that might change this, but until then, we need to at least see if the concept still works against other armies. There was no shooting in this Slaves to Darkness army. There was a good amount of magic. That again cost me some spells. Damage was good, especially in an army that was basically almost always at a 3-up save. Damage was great. Damage worked. The elves pulled their weight in melee and tanking damage, fighting a comparable amount of points to a draw. So I'm happy with that. The sorceress lived. And actually, I was down to one blackguard that I could then try to rally the unit back out of, which was nice. And again, yeah, that was the other thing with this, was when it comes down to it, after the Chosen died and evaporated, and the objective was moving from my right to the middle, I controlled the three objectives, and then my opponent had one on the far left that I snuck with steel helms. But on my opponent's turn, I still had screens, and they had a Karkadrak Lord and the Varen Guard as major threats, and a Chaos Lord on foot at that point, who just... they can't be everywhere at once, and I had too many speed bumps of Steel Helms, not Free Guild Guard anymore, Steel Helms. I remember the names of my units. um, the Pontifex even. And it's just an interesting army to play. And because, again, I had 20 Fusiliers instead of 30, it was a bit more interactive with my opponent because I used those points elsewhere for other things. Um, and Belthanos feels like a Stonehorn, which will be great for my Sylvaneth army as well. But, outside of his army of renown, his abilities are fantastic. And he got me a battle tactic this game, killed some stuff, and then died horrifically. I still, it's one of those things where looking back to, was that the right play for me sending him out there? And for me, the answer is still yes. I would still do it because dice are gonna happen, right? My opponent made great saves. I rolled horrible for the mount the whole game. I did. There's just no, I didn't have a command point for +1 to hit, and that combat with the Vanguard, which again brought up this whole thing. Do I really want to do that when I could have a Smash Griffin do that? The point is, if he doesn't die and I roll average on armor saves and a bit better on my ward than I did, which is in the realm of possibility, especially considering I fought first, and I kill an extra Vanguard and put a wound on another. If I roll a little bit better on my mount, math says I should have. He lives, they burnt the fight twice, and now they're pinned there through their turn. In a position where they cannot move quick enough to get onto an objective. Thankfully, they still couldn't, because they were so far back from when Belthanos went in there on my turn, where in that round 2, they didn't actually get to charge. They were repositioning to catch the pulse, the geomantic pulse coming through. And my plan, if it had worked a little bit better, would have made it so that on their turn they wouldn't have moved. And then turn 3 would have been them positioning where they couldn't fight anything until round 4. Which is why even my plan didn't fully work. Still killing what I did and then setting up for weakening them to shoot one and a bit more dead later. It's what eventually forced the forfeit, because I kept them away from scoring objectives for as long as possible. I would still make that play again because Belthanos flying is amazing, and the army worked. Again, could it work better? I don't know, but it's an interesting play style of being a control army, and again, you're just buying time for your gunners to do their work. Hopefully, Fusiliers won't get nerfed, especially because the Dark Elf army seems to be doing really well in an all Dark Elf build in tournaments that I've been following along with this. And I can say from experience, when I played a bunch of Phoenix Temple stuff in my Cities of Sigmar army before, a 4-up ward save is amazing. The profile is amazing. They don't have the ability to reroll wounds like Phoenix Temple did, but Blackguard are amazing. The spell they get from the Sorceress is amazing. They do their job very well. And also, I like having Paul of Doom on my Battle Mage. You would think the 3d6 charge would be something. If I took the Griffin, the 3d6 charge I think still works amazingly well. But the reason the Chosen died how they did was with my either -1 to rend shooting or the -1 rend on the Blackguard if I didn't get the spell off. The thing is, I Paul of Doomed them with their 24-inch range, not 30. Again, still learning the army. I I Paul of Doomed them so they couldn't redeploy or all out defense or all out attack. Because if they all out attack, my opponent hits with everything from the Chosen that were there that first round, and my elves are dead. If they all out defensed, against shooting, I don't then in my subsequent combat phase kill enough. I love the spell. It's great. I'm keeping it as long as I can. The only way I'm probably doing anything crazier with the 3d6 charge or Faw's protection or anything like that is if I could fit in another battle mage, and that'd probably be if like something horrible happens to the Warforger and he gets kicked out of the army. I don't see that happening. And again, the Fusilier Mortal Wound combo is hard to pull off because it's that wizard spell could just be auto unbound, it could just be regular unbound, primal dice are a factor. So I don't know that combo gets beat up that bad. And if Fusiliers go up another 10 points, I have 20 points in my list. But that's this week in Rocco's training arc. Again, so far, 1 win, no losses. We need to get like at least 2 more training games in before we start talking about list changes. Unless, again, like a points update comes from Games Workshop for the winter quarter. And it might. And then next video might be me talking about a game and then the list changes I made after. Who knows? But until then, thank you for watching. Leave a like in the video. Leave a comment if you have things you want me to cover. You've got questions that I could answer. And the training montage continues. Be nice. Roll some dice. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.